Welcome back to Behind the Roast podcast, where we dive into the world of tea and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Joseph, and today we have a special guest, Matt from Short and Stout Tea, joining us as we explore the journey of turning a passion for tea into a driving business, the art of matcha, and a unique experience that Short and Stout Tea offers. Whether you're a tea enthusiast or an inspiring entrepreneur, this episode is packed with insights and inspiration. So grab your cup of tea and sit back and let's get started. Matt, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Pretty good, Joseph. And yourself?
Doing good. So give us a little introduction about yourself and what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So I am a co-owner with me and my wife. We own Short and Stout Tea. We're a tea lounge located at 1736 Western Avenue in Albany. We got our start probably about 15 years ago in kind of like want to get into the online way of selling tea, like an online tea boutique, I think was the term that we were trying to use. And it was really hard for us to kind of like jump into that realm. But what we found ourselves was in the craft fair circuit for good part of like 2-3 years before we made the jump into the tea lounge. So definitely have like a loose tea focus. But when we got to the tea lounge, we knew that, we didn't have a strong business plan. We just knew what we loved, and what we loved was tea. But we also knew that, a tea purchase can happen once every 3 months or something like that. We needed customers kind of coming in a lot more frequently than that. So my wife, she's Thai, and so a big part of Thai cuisine is like balance of flavor, and she has a fantastic palate. I wish she could be here with us today, but unfortunately, she's working the shop. That's a mom and pop shop for you. So we have part of that palette was delicious flavors, and I absolutely trusted her. Her being able to create these fantastic drinks that would be able to bring people in continually, and then still every 3 months or so they'd be buying loose tea, but we'd be more top of mind because they'd be coming in for these drinks and like tea infused pastries, and it just kind of really blossomed from there. It was I was also concerned back then. Again, we're talking like 2011, and I was like, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive in the summertime? And I had been to Thailand a couple times by then. And she said, well, what about bubble tea? I was like, yes, absolutely. Bubble tea will be able to, we'll be able to survive in the summer under bubble tea. And, mind you, again, I kind of mentioned that she was Thai. We have been kind of playing with different concepts of what that restaurant or cafe. We didn't want a bar because we had a small, growing family. At the time we had probably a 4, a 3, and a 1-year-old. Probably advanced that a little bit more. Probably like a 6, a 5, and a 3. Yeah, 6, 5, 3, I would say was their ages. And so we definitely wanted to have like a family oriented spot. And at the time there was like 3 Thai restaurants, and we were like, oh, there's too many Thai restaurants. Okay, maybe there was 5 Thai restaurants at the time, and there was like 1 bubble tea spot in the mall. And so we figured, we wanted to be that unique spot, and we just pulled the trigger and made it happen. We did a lot of designing on a dime in our space, and we opened it, and it's been kind of growing ever since. Been layering on the menus over the years, including the bubble tea menu, and kind of got the college crowd coming to us. But since COVID, we bubble tea, there's been probably like 5 bubble tea spots that's open between us and the mall, or us and University at Albany. So certainly lost that crowd, but we keep on rolling with the punches. And, we've had a passion for matcha when we opened up our second spot in Crossgates in 2017, 2016. That was the first time we visited Japan, and it had a strong, passion for that ever since. And that boom's just been booming. So been kind of riding that wave and trying to create unique things.
And the Crossgates Mall, when you were in that location, wasn't that originally a Tijuana at some point, and you purchased that? Or was it something separate?
There was yes, it had absolutely everything to do with Tivana. So Tivana was a standalone company. They got bought by Starbucks. Starbucks then closed all their Teavanas within like 3-4 years. There was actually a period of time where Teavana under Starbucks wanted to open up like tea bars. And they said that they would have not thousands of these Teavana tea bars, but hundreds of these tea bars. But that kind of concept died, and they pulled out of, they closed all their locations. So when the mall had a vacant spot, they kind of came to us and said, do you want to take this on? And, we were just kind of hemming and hawing over it. And it was just kind of like a dream come true. It's a turnkey shop that people are coming to already for tea. It's everything that the tea lounge wasn't. So the tea lounge, we continue to do craft fairs and farmers markets and different like conventions or wine events, everywhere we can find people to say, oh, you like our tea? Well, you can come to our tea lounge. So we constantly are pulling people to the tea lounge, but the mall has people coming to already. And so that was the foot traffic that we just don't get. So it was a great opportunity to just meet new tea drinkers. And so, we decided pretty quickly to go ahead and pull the trigger and enter that space. But a part of the contract was there was low risk in our regard, where we could, it was like month to month in a sense. However, if they got a full 5-year contract from some other corporate entity, they would kick us out. But they wanted to keep the money flowing, so they would find a new location for us. So we ended up moving 3 times in 3 years. And we were literally looking at a 5-year contract with them, and COVID hit. And we learned the big difference between a month-to-month versus a 5-year corporately structured contract, which they were charging all those businesses monthly rent for whatever it was, a year or 6 months or 8 months, whatever it was that they were shut down, they were still charging. And but we saw the writing on the wall. We enjoyed just the tea lounge, where we could focus on what we love the most, which is high quality drinks with exceptional customer service. Opening up a second location isn't always what it's cracked up to be. I've definitely seen a lot of my cafe friends go down that road and then scale back.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially for someone that's starting small and wants to open multiple locations. You have to be all over the area, just like on all your places, just to make sure everything is going right the way you want it to go. And it's not easy just having 2 locations. I think one should be suffice. Easy to manage until, I guess, since you have kids and stuff like that, if they start growing, you want to expand at some point and start teaching them and start buying more locations and adding another location they can manage and do the same thing that what your expectations are to running the business.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think it really comes back down to that quality control on where you kind of need to be there, because there is a creep that kind of pulls away. We call it sometimes in my day-to-day job, we kind of call it like mission creep, where like this is your task, but all of a sudden you start shifting your focus, and next thing you know, when you look back, you're definitely in a different direction. And that can happen when you're not present in your space all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Push button service or things that are set to like an automated fashion, even like cleaning or sanitizing. Yeah, sure. You can spend all kinds of money of having a manager or having somebody contracted to clean the machines or pay people to do the point of sale system. I mean, even just this morning, we were dealing with point of sale system, printer system, technology on that side. There's just so many different facets of a cafe that, you're either like, we're still designing on a dime, we're still doing it ourselves, because we find satisfaction of that. We learn the business in and out. We can say that this is our business and we know it in and out. And so there's a lot of satisfaction that comes to owning your own business in that regard.
So the whole thing with the matcha, right, that you guys go out to, Tokyo and then go and see these actual suppliers or growers. How much have you learned so much into understanding the whole matcha process and what they do, and then bringing it over here to the States?
Yeah, it's if we didn't do that, we could only learn so much. You're only exposed to what you're exposed to. And if you are here in in the Northeast, you might travel to like, New York City. When before we opened up our that location in Crossgates Mall, we went down to see like the first Cha-Cha Matcha that opened up. It was the first dedicated matcha spot, and to see it was unique. But when you kind of go back to Japan and you see where it is originated from, and you just get a whole much more appreciation of really the art form and the historical cultural perspective. I know that probably bores a lot of people and doesn't always necessarily translate to what happens at the register, because you got to ultimately keep your business afloat through making income. But I think credibility is a huge part of what we want to do and have and pay respect to its origins. Kind of a rabbit hole if you want to continue going down there. It's a lot of philosophical kind of perspective of like how it fits within trying to keep your business afloat. But again, I'm trying to allude to it too, is that owning a business isn't all about dollars and cents. It's about what you're contributing to your community and how you're contributing to your self-growth. Again, sorry, going to be really philosophical. And
Yeah.
there's this meme that I saw the other day, and it fits. You want to make a large fortune into a small fortune, open up a cafe or a restaurant.
There's so many cafes and restaurants that are just opening up, especially in the capital region. And as I go to coffee shop around the area, I see that they're not doing it the proper way of whisking matcha and giving you the actual matcha that you expect it to taste. So what differentiates yours compared to how all cafes do it, like the style, and why Short and Stout Tea's matcha is better and different from a cafe style?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if going back to when matcha was first kind of coming out, I would go to, like, I've been to a Starbucks. Well, I've been to Starbucks 2 times that really, cement in my mind. The first time was like, I want to learn all about coffee. This was before tea. I want to learn all about coffee, and there's this new Starbucks that's opening up. It's probably like 2003. And I was like, I got to learn about this stuff. Let me go there and ask questions. They should know all about their bean. And they didn't want to talk about coffee at a coffee shop. I thought that was so weird. So that was like a huge thing that we wanted to do when opening up Short and Stout, is be very education focused. We've probably given over like 300 hour-long sessions over the years in a variety of different settings about talking about tea. And then now how people do matcha here in the area, it's a tough question. I mean, you're asking me to judge, are people doing it wrong? And I wouldn't say Short and Stout's doing it right. I know what you're saying. And I would say that when I would also go to that Starbucks and say, I want to try this matcha, but I don't like it sweet and I don't want it creamy. I want it straight. And it tastes absolutely foul because it wasn't meant to be drunk that way. But that's how matcha is supposed to be drunk. That specific product isn't meant to be drunk that way. So what you end up with is like a culinary grade matcha that's meant to be drunk sweet and creamy. And that's fine. If that's what you want, is like a melted ice cream flavored drink. Absolutely. I know we certainly enjoy that too. And even in that, you can have a quality range. We were talking about balance of flavor earlier, where, as opposed to overly sweet or overly earthy, etc. But if you want really good matcha, you have to go directly to the source, and then it kind of just opens you up into a whole new realm of possibilities. Because I won't say for everybody who likes a matcha latte, there are people who drink it straight. And for those who drink it straight, that could be like in an Americano, like straight matcha, but watered down, and be enjoyed that way. And then there's also the traditional way of drinking it, which is called Ususha style. And that would be under the ceremonial grade. I mean, I put ceremonial grade in quotes because that term gets thrown around a lot. But there is a ceremony in Japan, and they're using about a teaspoon of matcha with about 2 ounces of water, whisking it and drinking it. That's actually their thin style. There's a thicker style in the ceremony that they drink, which I have to admit is not so enjoyable. So the Asusha style, is the way that our ceremonial grade can be drunk. Very umami rich, very chlorophyll rich. And then there's another grade below that, which is our daily, which can be drunk straight, but more so that Americano style. I think that's probably the level that most ceremonial levels you'll find in the area. And then below that is obviously your bar blend, culinary blend grade that you get into terroir, where we have the Kyoto and the Suzioka growing regions, and then you have the cultivar. So it gets pretty deep pretty quick. But I think what we've talked about in the past is consistency, and consistency is really important with what you're ordering and what you expect you're going to get. Expectations is really about it. When you come and get a straight ceremonial bowl from us, you are expecting to get a very good grade of matcha that you can drink straight. That isn't always the case when I go to another, tea matcha place and order a straight bowl matcha. It's just doesn't meet my expectations as opposed to what we're pulling and selling at the tea lounge.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, I see, like, the matcha that you guys have is different compared to what the cafe styles are. You don't know if it's actually ceremonial or what they say. They just going by what they order, you know? And I know what the product you guys have because you pretty much show it out there compared to what a coffee shop will show that product. And just knowing, like, the different types of grades and people understanding there are different types of grades and different ways of doing the matcha, like you say, like the culinary, then you have like the one that does the lattes, and you have the actual one where you just drink it straight up. Like, I love drinking it straight up, though. Yesterday when your wife gave me that was really good. It was very flavorful, and it was not too earthy. It was just perfect, you know?
Yeah, so that's off of our newer matcha line that hasn't been put out yet. So we did a spin-off company called Whisk Matcha, and we're kind of developing a new menu that meets the matcha latte kind of style that we drink more at a not in America. This is what you would drink. This is what you would find in Asia. It's a smaller cup. It's a stronger cup, but yeah, it's also well balanced. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and you don't need a big, huge 16 ounce. Just that perfect size ounce was just perfect just for me to drink. I don't need to drink that much milk in my matcha, you know? It's really good, very flavorful, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, there is truth behind the hype for sure. And so it's important for people to know that it just isn't a drink. It's a healthy shot of goodness. So whatever makes green tea good for us, and that's usually caffeine, it's L-theanine, it's epigallocatechin 3 gallate, also known as EGCG, it's theobromine, theophylline, and that's extra strong in matcha because you're consuming the tea plant as opposed to just steeping it out after 3 minutes like you would do a normal green tea. And so the more you can consume of a high quality green tea, the more you can consume, the more you can absorb, and the way that you're going to get the health benefits that you expect. So
Yeah,
I can break
exactly.
those. Yeah, I can break those down a little bit for you too. So like caffeine, we think of like 100 milligrams per cup in a cup of coffee. And in black tea, we say it's half of that, 50 milligrams. And then matcha is a little bit more. So we say like 80 milligrams per cup. Now, the L-theanine is really the magical component of green tea. And L-theanine also contributes to that umami flavor, and which is what we describe through our experience. It's kind of like, you hear about like a meaty flavor, or you hear about like tomatoes having umami or Parmesan having umami. But the Japanese were the ones who discovered this fifth taste, and they were the ones who are defining it and actually define it as deliciousness in cuisine. Like, in their opinion, their Japanese dish isn't delicious unless it has umami flavor. And again, connected closely with L-theanine, which is unique because it crosses the blood-brain barrier and calms and soothes the brain directly. So you're alert from the caffeine, and you're calmed and soothed by the L-theanine. No wonder it was the monks who brought it place to place throughout Asia and into Japan. in the 11th century. Then you also have epigallocatechin 3 gallate. That's an antioxidant. We've heard great things for many, many years about antioxidants, about kind of like removing the waste or the free radicals from the cells. But there's also more research about telomere length, and how telomere length is, in maintaining that length, is tied to longevity. And so that antioxidant helps in doing that too. Theobromine, theophylline are the vasodilators and bronchial dilators. So everything's circulating well and breathing well. Now, we aren't also, I'm going to also say that we aren't herbalists either. So we do have people lately asking a lot for raspberry leaf. I think it's a pregnancy thing. Sometimes we've been asked about the detox. And so we have some functional teas, but we really don't get down too deep into a lot of that stuff. So it's more like the common sense and the researched elements. You can't deny the effect of caffeine and L-theanine. You can't deny the effect of chamomile or valerian root being relaxing. Even the Indian system of medicine, Ayurveda, with the ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, clove, turmeric. Those are all kind of like research based now. So that's kind of the end when we get into the health benefits of stuff. Just a common sense side.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research out there, and a lot of reports and scientists actually researching all this stuff, and it's pretty cool to get to understand that and what the benefits are. The one thing that I seen that was popping up in the news about, I guess, more of like females who are like, where they drink too much matcha and it does something with their body where it just takes, was it? I can't remember what it was called. Iron
It was,
deficiency.
iron
Yeah, it was iron
deficiency. Yep.
deficiencies, and it absorbs the iron out of their body, and it makes them more deficient. So it winds up getting all these like rashes or something like that. Some women are like that, not all, depending on how much matcha they drink in a day. It's kind of weird, like hearing that in the news, but I don't know how much research is into that aspect of that. Do you know anything, or just hearing whatever the news is just going by?
Yeah. Yes, no, there's truth I believe that there's truth to that for sure. I think there's too much of a good thing is always bad. I think that there are different ways that you can consume tea or matcha that's going to be more beneficial. And yeah, too much of a good thing is going to be bad. So you do have to be kind of careful on how and how much you drink. So is potentially a concern. I think that having a matcha a day is going to be not negative to your health. If you're having 3 or 4, maybe that is too much. And so I believe that there's some truth to that. I also think that it might be also overhyped because, as much as even short and stout is a reaction to the coffee that was just getting so big with the influx of Starbucks. And, we always like to zig when everybody is zagging. I think, for whatever reason, there was a lot of things popping up in my feed about how the Chinese system of medicine does not like matcha. Now, sorry, I'm sometimes a suspicious person. It's like, well, is it because, matcha is a Japanese product and here's China saying it's not good? Well, okay. So what's the alternative from China? So I think that's why you always have to have take everything with a little grain of salt and do your own research and, go from there. There was even a time that China was pushing something about tapioca pearls not being digested. So there was like this x-ray of somebody's, intestines, and it looked like undigested tapioca pearls throughout the entire, but after I did the research, no, that's just compacted feces. That has nothing to do with tapioca. You can cut that out if you want. But again, yeah, I feel like you have to do your own research, and any claim that comes your way, you still got to do, your research, whether it's positive or negative.
Do you think that the matcha hype is going to die down at some point and something different is going to replace matcha at some point? Because I feel like it's just too overly hyped, and just people are still like, there's more creativity going on with matcha. It's just out of this world. Like the things that people come up with, these special lattes, it's just like, how is that possible with such a powdery thing like that to make that lovely drink? And it just keeps on evolving. And I just think, is it going to die at some point? Or is it going to keep on evolving more and more?
I think maybe a little bit of both. Yeah, it's been a a product that's been a part of Japanese culture really strongly since like the feast when they kind of codified the uh, the the Japanese matcha ceremony. And I hesitate because really there was a tea master, and that tea master in Kyoto was getting a huge following, and he was practicing a type of matcha called wabi sabi, which is a fun thing to say. And it just talks about like the beauty of the imperfect and nature and rusticness. And he wasn't an emperor, but he was a shogun. Rose through the ranks, which is very, very rare in feudal Japan. And he wanted to have the golden matcha ceremony. But everybody was going to Senor Rikyo for his wabi-sabi style. So the shogun got jealous and killed him. But it went underground for a little bit and kind of came back with his grandchildren. And so for many hundreds of years, matcha has been a big part of Japan culture and still is and still will be. You do have the challenge of a lot of young people in Japan aren't taking up the matcha agricultural side. So you do have a production kind of issue. I guess I would, as a positive to this global matcha rush, is that it does show Japan that this is a valued product. And so they're, reinvesting and creating ways to bring their product to market. There's not only a growing issue, but there's also a milling issue. So matcha is uniquely grown by like not only just the growing and the care that's being taken place in the plants, but they shade their tea tree for 3 to 4 weeks before plucking. So that increases the chlorophyll and decreases the tannins. So that gives it that umami richness. And then it slowly grounds, after a couple processes, they create tencha, and then that tencha is ground. And that slow grind process takes 24 hours to grind a pound of matcha. Again, this is ceremonial level matcha that we're talking about. But those mills, they were actually not only running out of matcha or tencha to be ground, but they were running out of mills to mill. So there is a whole kind of supply chain issue. And as you can kind of see, it all kind of got stressed. So the prices had literally tripled. Not all of that was the tariffs, but some of it was the tariffs. Some of it was the shipping. Some of it was the production. Some of it was the supply, ultimately the supply and demand. So as matcha prices increase, yeah, something has to give. Not everybody is drinking the highest level of matcha. So a counterfeit matcha could suffice, whether that's matcha that's not shaded for those 3 to 4 weeks. Maybe it's matcha. Just grinding anything doesn't make matcha. I think we were talking and how you were saying somebody was making chai matcha. Isn't that cool? Like, is that matcha? But again, if you're defining matcha as anything ground that's whisked and drunk, then fine. I wouldn't call it matcha. We also define tea as plants that come from the tea plant as opposed to a chamomile tea, because chamomile doesn't come from the tea plant. It's just a flower. So technically it's the same. So white tea, green tea, black tea, pu'er, matcha, those come from the tea plant. So those are teas. Anything else that you steep in hot water is technically it's the same. And so those words are important. Defining things are important. And so if you hear a blue matcha made from what? Made from blue pea flower that's ground and whisked, it's, it's really losing what it's meant for. So to answer your question, yeah, something has to give. I think that there's positives and negatives out of the matcha boom. Some of the positives is that there should be still good matcha being produced from Japan. The negatives is that those prices are going up and that other countries, other tea growing areas are going to get into the game, and that will probably create more questions than answers when you order it at the local coffee house.
Yeah, like now people are starting to use like hojicha and start doing the same way, whisking it just like a matcha version of it. And then like the whole thing with the chai, and then I see ube where they're just making the fine powder and just doing the traditional whisking like you would do with matcha, and using those other alternatives to create different drinks and stuff like that. And it's just like a new trend that I think is going to start going towards, where matcha is going to get so expensive that people are not going to be able to supply it or afford to start making lattes out of it, and they're looking for other alternatives at this point to try to create something. Matcha is like the number one thing. Everybody loves matcha. It's the new hype. Like the same thing with the boba tea that you guys had at one point, where boba was like the biggest thing, and now that is like somewhat mid, and now matcha's the biggest thing. Now, how far can this go? And when's the next thing gonna make matcha back down to this level where it brings the cost down because nobody's getting it as much? And then next thing you know, you have another thing.
Yeah, I think a thing that's a huge driver, again, like I said, believe the hype in matcha because it is a great, great tea. But what also is driving the hype is social media. And so it's an attractive thing. It's the color is vibrant. It's easy to talk about. And so I think a lot of it just has to do with feeding the algorithm and then being in that echo chamber and seeing it. So, as much as, and you've been into all the cafes in the capital region. And so, in all the cafes, even places that you wouldn't expect to see it, you see it. And so it is omnipresent. And is it going to shift? Absolutely. It will shift to something else. It will be another drink that will be all the buzz. I think something that I read or saw was that those who live in southern U.S. states are losing their accent because they're hearing words and repeating those words through social media. Everybody just wants to conform. I got teenage girls. So I think it's safe to say that, girls, it's very important for young women to kind of conform and not stick out. Because when you sometimes stick out, you can be attracted to criticism. Nobody wants to be criticized. You want to fit in. But that fitting in can be hyper fitting in. And so now everybody's wearing the same clothes. Everybody's speaking the same words. Everybody's on the same devices. My ladies can't switch from, granted, I can't either switch from an Apple to an Android, but that conformity also, I think, takes place to a drink trend or a food trend. And if everybody's drinking matchas, then everybody's drinking matchas. It'll shift. Things shift. It'll be interesting to see how this will shift away, but it's bound to happen. But I'm glad to know that there will be people that are introduced to something and will stick with it moving forward because it is a valuable product. It's not trendy just to be trendy. I've never been a trendy person just to be trendy. So there's definitely staying power with it.
That's the one thing is like, how do you keep up with all this social media trending with your business to try to engage your customers to repeatedly come back to your spot instead of going to a traditional cafe and getting the same thing? There's not too many tea stores, especially around in the capital region. You have like the Whistling Kettle and then just very small ones, not too many. There's a lot of cafes out there. So I feel like you don't have much of a competition when it comes to just tea itself, but your competition to keep up with the matcha and to get those lattes where you need people to come to you to have your specific drinks than to fight with the coffee shops, Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, we just do what we think is right for tea. And we have a big old, and we need to train our customers to know what to expect. So some people expect, they're shocked that it's like, wait a minute, the tea, I have to wait for the tea to steep. It's like, yes, we have 150 different kinds of teas and not all of them are prepared right now for you to choose. So we do fresh brew all our teas behind the counter, and then we will let people know or deliver to their in-house customers when it's ready. And so that way it's kind of brewed optimally because not every tea is brewed the same. I've been in, and not every tea is brewed best in a tea bag. Tea bag being, the tea bag of loose tea put in a tea bag isn't the optimum way, let alone tea bag tea that's brewed in a tea bag. Because, there's just a whole different world between tea bag tea quality versus loose tea. And the way that we brew loose tea is with the largest kind of infuser possible. So that way the tea can circulate within that hot water. Loose tea really expands. Some tea, at least quadruples in size, some even more, expand even more. So you need to give it that space for it to expand. And if we're making a tea latte, we're brewing that for, So if we're brewing a tea latte, we are brewing that for 7 minutes, and then we're, adding the other ingredients too. So sometimes it's a wait, and I think the wait is worth it. I mean, it has to be worth it because we can't make it any faster.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good because you're getting it fresh right there. You're just pulling out the loose tea, you're brewing it right there. You're not pre-made like other places will do something pre-made, but it tastes better that way.
Right.
It's a long process, or it takes like 2 to 3 minutes, depending on what tea you get, but it's worth it, you know?
Sure. I mean,
And like,
even there's that chai. What is it? The is it oregano, Oregon chai or something like that. It just comes in a carton. You know, I mean, you could buy that at the store. I don't know why you would buy that at a coffee place or a tea place. I mean, my girls, or it's just pumps of syrup that make the chai, and it's not. There's health benefits to tea and to chai. Probably not when it's just the artificial flavoring in a syrup. If you're making your own syrups, yeah, absolutely, do that thing. But I know that there's a lot of chai syrup pumps that aren't of natural origins. So when we brew our chais, we brew it with our black tea, our ginger, our cinnamon, and we give that the respect it needs to be a delicious, delicious cup. And customers know the difference. Some customers know that that's not for them, and that's okay. And then because they want it, they want to order through the app and pick up through a to-go window and not even get out of their car. I mean, we've had a conversation about 7 Brew, that some people love 7 Brew because of the convenience factor. And then there's others that say, well, no, it's not even good coffee. And so it's just also interesting to know that a lot of these coffee places, what draws customers isn't even coffee. I think even Starbucks, half of their drinks are not coffee based. They're either like the refreshers or whatever.
yeah, it's just like you have a way of be able to like 7 Brew, like you were saying, and be able to deliver that drink to the customer at their car so they don't have to get out. That's a good concept, especially for you to do something like that. That's amazing because you make it so much easier. Where that's what people want is convenience, and you put that
Can't do it.
convenience right there.
No,
Huh?
we can't do it. No,
Can't do it? No? What, like they order and then you just to go window? You don't have,
no, I'm saying we used to do that during COVID, but
yeah.
yeah, we only went through the window to give people their drinks. But yeah, no, I was just alluding to 7 Brew.
Okay.
Yeah, we've thought long and hard about it, and there's just no way that we would be able to do a takeout window. I think we want to be a little bit more focused on creating an experience that you need to slow down a little bit. It's okay to just chill out, decompress, just relax while we brew your tea for you, and chat up with your friend, read a book, and just relax, and then we'll bring the tea to you. I think that's it. Ideally, you get a pot of tea, you bring a friend, both get a pot of tea, you share the pot of tea. That way you get to taste different kinds of teas. That's what I think tea means to us at Short and Stout. It's to be a little bit more grounded as opposed to the quick minute service out the door onto your next thing, multitasking. That isn't the best way to drink and enjoy tea.
The one thing I like about your place is the way that it's designed. It's very inviting and you have a lot of space and great scenery inside, amazing artwork, and just like how it looks inside, it makes it so much relaxing and calm where I just want to sit there, do some work in my computer and just have a nice good cup of tea. And it's just really nice inside and people should sit down and enjoy their experience by just being in your place. I feel like a lot more people should do that and not just rush into in and out concept. I feel like it's very relaxing. And then the whole thing too is like you do a really great class on matcha and doing other classes too, right? That you do that people should sign up for so they can get the knowledge and experience on understanding how to brew tea, how to whisk matcha, and just understand the whole culture aspect of it too.
Yeah, the education component is huge. That kind of ties into what we want to do is educate our customers, and not just educate customers. Sounds so formal, but educate and just talk about tea culture, share experiences. And I think the more you know about something, the more you're going to be respectful of it and the more you're going to get out of it. So yeah, we've been ever since probably about 2 years ago. We put together these private workshops where we do hand whisking of matcha, so that way you can experience both the ceremonial grade and the daily grade of matcha. Get a whisk in your hand and learning how to whisk that. And then you also have, you're learning what those kind of taste like. So that's on the matcha side, and the Western style of brewing is what I just did, kind of like with this brewing basket, steeping green tea 1 teaspoon per 8 ounces for 3 minutes only. But there's also a Western style of brewing tea. Western style of brewing tea is really, really different. So you have this clay teapot, which is probably about 4 ounces of water, and you're putting 2 teaspoons of tea in this. So you're kind of like quadrupling the amount. But what you end up doing is when you pour this off, you're pouring it off in I pour it off in 15 seconds. Some people, they'll do less tea and maybe wait 30 seconds. But you pour that off into a pitcher, you go ahead and drink that, and then you re-steep and re-steep and re-steep and re-steep. So it's a great way that they say to taste tea, not just to drink tea, because the tea kind of has a different kind of flavor throughout each dip. And it works really well with oolong, which are tightly rolled balls of a cross between a green and a black. Works really well against curled black teas, or even pu'er, which is a compressed aged tea. So completely different style, but a great way to enjoy straight tea.
Are you planning to do more workshops or different workshops in mind?
Yeah, so we do larger classes of for matcha or tea 101. What is tea, and breaking down the Camellia sinensis plant, and breaking down the white tea, green tea, and what makes that all different, and how to brew it, the subtleties and brewing those ways, the health benefits. Yeah, that's typical in a tea 101 fashion. We also do kind of tisanes, the herbals, the fruits. We have done mixology classes back to how to make a good spritzer, how to make a good latte. We've done blending teas, with the loose tea, how to make a good base, and what do you want to do? Do you want to have an energizing? Do you want a calming? Do you want a health benefit one? What ingredients do you need to add to that? Again, what base do you need to make it delicious too? So we've done that before. We've done, at the Flower and Garden Show at Hudson Valley, I always do the herbal teas from your garden. I can't say teas because technically tisanes from your garden. You can't grow tea here. So there's a lot of classes like that, even just the tea ceremony or the tea history. There's a lot of classes. So we love talking about tea. There's no shortage of us talking about tea.
No, that's good, because people that are hearing this, they'll know that you have all these classes and they're curious and say, hey, I'm going to go to Short and Stout Tea and learn the whole tea process and understand how to whisk matcha, how to brew teas, and how to do different combinations of brewing methods. And that's a great lesson that people should learn and get the full experience of what tea actually tastes. And that's a good way to show your customers and show everybody else. Any drink lineups you guys are planning for the future, or anything you don't have to say, or anything that you're looking to plan to release in the next couple of months?
Yeah. There's definitely always something. Yeah, we're big on seasonals. We used to only put our seasonals out the day before the event, but we do have our Irish flag out already in early March. And so that is a green tea, the matcha, the milk, and the Thai tea bottoms. We got our red, white, and orange, creating the Irish flag. We also have a couple different matchas that are coming out. So I'm trying to think of our newest one. So we did have a matcha banana brulee, and then
which is phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you. That one is close to my heart, because I kind of was we got to do this banana thing in the winter. It would be a good fit for banana, which is some nice and fruitiness. It's, banana puree. So it's real high quality ingredients. The brulee part is a cheese foam on top, sprinkled with a little sugar, put to a torch, so it has that crustiness on top. The cheese foam with the saltiness and the banana, it just works so well. But we every month we're coming out with a new matcha, specialty matcha latte, and they're pretty complex and pretty delicious. The one quick story that I can tell you about our strawberry matcha lattes. Strawberry matcha lattes have been around a lot. Joyce has tried to crack the code, but it was actually a trip to San Francisco that she was like, finally cracked the code of what needs to be done. So she came back, we put it together, a lot of taste testing, created a perfect, well-balanced, flavorful matcha latte. But it also becomes a curse too, because people expect that they can get that year round. And that's just not the reality. We've probably disappointed the most people with that drink, when it's no longer available. It's seasonal for a reason.
And it's a really good drink, and I truly enjoy it. I want to be involved with like when you're testing things because I want to know like firsthand what is it going to taste like and is it good or I love to be part of that whole tasting experience. It's really educational for me to see what your kinds are trying to come up with and then maybe help with my opinion, what I think needs to be tweaked a little bit and maybe work on it together. That would be a great thing that I would love to do. If you ever guys trying to launch something, just have me try it out. I'll
Sure,
be down for
sure.
it.
Be careful what you wish for, because it is actually quite tedious, and you will leave with a stomach ache. And then it's like, nope, we got to do this again, because Joyce is a perfectionist. And so it's a job. It's not a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing too that people are ordering now, that since we're getting into like the springtime, a lot of people want a lavender matcha or getting more lavender flavor. Are you planning to do something like that?
Let me think. Yeah, we do. We do like lavender too. We have a honey lavender macaron, which has been a long time favorite of ours. And so, yes, lavender's certainly been a big part. Yeah, that's I guess a seasonal thing. Even though it's an August flower, it is something that can kind of come out in the springtime. I've been racking my brain about a tulip one here in the Northeast. We're in Albany area. There's like something to be said about, Albany's connection to the Dutch, and tulips is a strong part. The Tulip Fest in Albany. Definitely, somebody's got to put together a good tulip drink. If not, all right, I'll give people this one because we're not going to do it. You got the cup, right? And then they pipe out these petals on the top of the cup. And so that looks like a bouquet of tulips. Somebody should definitely do that.
I think you guys should do that.
No,
that'll be something. No, it's too much.
No, too much.
I think it would be pretty cool.
It would be absolutely cool. I want to see it, and I'll pay $9 for it. But we're not going to be able to.
It's a lot of work for someone like for you and your wife, because your guys such a small local business. So there's a lot of work involved doing all that. And that would be really great, though. I think it would be a great trend, something that nobody has done, and I think it would be beneficial for you guys because everybody would be flocking to you. Oh, we got this tulip, like something going on.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yep,
Yeah.
not us.
Besides, you have a tea. What other stuff do you have in your shop that you want people to know that are your more popular items?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, there's tea, but I mean that's already 150 different kinds, probably more once you add in the 8 grades of matcha that we have. But we also do bulk herbs. Whether that is chicory or straight chamomile or straight hibiscus. But on the food side, because because all that we can make hot or iced. And then we do the drinks, and the drinks are split up into like the lattes and the spritzers. We've got the bubble teas and fresh brewed milk teas. And then the whipped cheese teas have kind of like their own, drinks with the cheese foam on top. And we also do offer quite a bit of food that we all make in-house. Not everything. Our macarons we don't make in-house. We get those from New York City from a traditional French baker. And we have a wide arrangement of those macarons. We've been working with them for almost since we started, so over 12 years. So we have a great relationship with them. So we got, your traditional scones, but not the clotted cream. We'll warm those up and serve them hot and toasty for in-house customers. got our typical like the brownies, and my specialty is the brookie, which is a brownie and cookie in one. Warm that
Mhm.
up, drizzle with chocolate, with cream on the side. Your blondies, your croissant sandwiches, vegetarian spring rolls, chicken curry puffs. We have a loaded, it's not a dumpling, but we do have dumplings. And we do grilled cheeses, loaded grilled cheeses too. So all freshly made.
I seen that you had the short and stout tea cans that you guys got that are like manufactured for you guys, and it has the can itself. Was it like a spritzer?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that is that was something that we were working with Nine Pin, or Nine Pin came to us regarding. So we have a great relationship with Nine Pin. There's probably like 3 different tea ciders that are alcoholic that Alejandro creates and puts out there. Shooting Star that I'm drinking right now is a part of his new launch of ciders, and he was putting together a new canning facility. Literally bought a building next to his building and put together a non-alcoholic canning line. So there's a lot of like sparkling ciders that are non-alcoholic for other orchards to be selling their sparkling cider. So he cans that for them, and he thought that tea would be a good fit. So we do have a hibiscus and green tea carbonated, slightly sweetened can that is our tea to our specs, that he cans for us. And so it's been a great relationship.
Yeah, and that's really good. I remember you gave me a can and I had that. I'm like, oh my God, that's really good. Not
Yeah.
too sweet. You got the flavors that you guys intended to get with that specific, the hibiscus, and it was really good. I definitely have to go back and get more of that. Are you planning to start going into like, I know the cheese foam is like a process, but are you going to start going into like cold foam toppings for your matcha?
So I'm not too sure about what even cold foam is. I mean, but we've been doing cheese foam, which is a process to basically take cream cheese and brown sugar and a touch of salt to create this consistency that can go on top of a drink. But we love that concept. We definitely have plans on adding different flavors within a different consistency, not just the cheese, the cream cheese, but yeah, we used to do whipped cream, like homemade whipped cream, and that was pretty cumbersome. The machine, the cans would all get clogged up. You'd only get like five,
Yeah.
6 servings out of a big can. And so it just became kind of a waste. I mean, it was good when we were making like peanut butter, whipped cream, and good stuff like that. But with a chocolate, like a hot chocolate latte, but it just wasn't worth it in the long run. So, but we're definitely looking to create more layered drinks.
What is your go-to daily tea drink?
So my go-to daily tea drink is something called a curled dragon. It's from Yunnan, which is a Chinese black tea, and it's pretty unique. I'm gonna have to go get it now. I just can't just tell you about it. I gotta show you. So it's a daily drink if it only took me 2 seconds to get it. So yeah, so it's called curled dragon, and so that's what it looks like. And tea does have a grading system. There's an Indian grading system. It's not really worldwide, but it does the top grading system. I have to say the joke acronym first. It's far too good for ordinary people. So it's the finest, tippy, golden, flowery orange pecco. And so you can see that this tea is very golden, and actually each one of these balls is a tip. And so this is the best of the best when it comes to, in my opinion, tea. And so what I love about Chinese black teas is that they tend to be more chocolatier as opposed to bitter, like Indian teas tend to be bitter, stand up to milk and sugar, but you got to drink this strong and Gong Fu style, which is in this clay teapot. And there's actually, I have a couple of different clay teapots, and so each clay teapot is for a different purpose, like a different tea, because you wouldn't want this porous teapot to be used for this black tea for 4 years and then say, I want to make some white tea and then put it in here, because all that, it's seasoned and works really, really well with that particular tea. So that's actually my teapot for that particular tea. And that's definitely a daily drink when I get a chance, like at my home office. But but then it's always going to follow up with a matcha. And then if I'm away at the office, then I'm doing matcha.
Okay. All right. And you just drink it just regular, no cream or milk or nothing like that.
Yeah. So the thing with matcha too is that you don't want to add cow milk to it because that will bind with the milk protein will bind with the antioxidants, so you won't be able to absorb, the antioxidants. So you're kind of diminishing the healthiness when you drink it with cow milk. So yeah, almond milk or oat milk, that's all fine. I do just drink it straight.
Anything in the future on plans on expanding with Short and Stout Tea or any new revelation that you guys are planning for the future?
Joyce would divorce me if I were to give any of the secrets away.
Oh, can't keep those. You can't just say it. All right. That's fine though.
Yeah. She's the entrepreneur. I am always playing it safe. At least I try to. And she's always thinking of the next thing. And she's always very busy in what she does, and that's creating perfection at the tea lounge, but pushing the envelopes in different directions. So she's always thinking and she's always planning. And whether or not those plans come to fruition is outside my control.
Yeah, it's just planning for the future to keep up with the clientele and then to keep it fresh and more engaging for your customers. So like part of her business is trying to make sure that she keeps the momentum going and don't make it die down, but just keep it fresh every time and move forward and try to keep up with something going on. Maybe like any new technology that you guys have noticed or seen in the tea industry or that's going to be revolutionized and maybe be beneficial to help you guys be more sufficient or proactive when it comes to your business?
So a lot of the answers are no, and a purposeful no. We were even thinking of like a kiosk, but we just don't. And when we go to different cities and we go to cafe hopping, we'll use kiosks all the time. But so we're definitely users of the technology, but for whatever reason, we don't want that to be our face. We want the tea experience, at least at Short and Stout, to be a one-to-one relationship between the tea lover and the team member. And that way we can just meet everybody's expectations. And so we want that personal connection. And we purposely create that connection not only between us and the tea lovers, but also the tea lovers with other tea lovers at the tea lounge. We want to have a welcoming space for people to come and enjoy and also enjoy others. So we do look at weaknesses as part of a business, and it just doesn't seem like we try to streamline some of the weaknesses, but it is large, big things. I mean, we're still hand labeling, hand printing, and hand packing our tea bags for our retail section. We don't even automate any of that.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I've just seen like technology advancing. Like for coffee, the equipment is getting a lot better when it comes to espresso machines. I figured there would be something like new out there where it comes to brewing tea a specific way. It's just crazy just seeing like the new things that these big corporations create when it comes to machinery, when it comes to brewing methods for, especially for like espresso machines. I might think that they'll have something somewhat similar to like a tea version or a
Absolutely,
tea
yes.
concept. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen any of those that will be beneficial or no, just like you just keep it the way it is and just brew it the regular way?
We are doing it the tried and true way. It does create, we think, more flexibility on our end to modify. I don't think in our iteration that we're going to drastically change those things. When bubble tea was like the biggest thing, is like, oh, there's bubble tea, like automatic bubble tea shakers that like will shake the bubble tea for you, as opposed to you spending the 30 seconds to do it. And so we've not, I wouldn't say looked at that, but, of course we've seen it and we'd be like, no, we don't see that happening. Same thing for like the automatic sealing of the lid. Not something that we want to, go in that direction.
Yeah. I was just figuring
Everyone.
because maybe you're trying to cut the time of people waiting online and maybe producing more faster by like a couple of seconds or whatever, how like you can get more of a through rate of checking people out, getting the drinks and get them
Sounds
going, you
like
know?
sounds like a perfect. I bet you the corporate's all over it, but we are not corporate. We are
Yeah.
very personalized, and we want to take that time to
Yeah.
do it right and a more organic way. as opposed to push. Yeah, there's push button tea service out there, but that won't be for sure.
Yeah, that's just one thing I just haven't seen yet. Maybe because it's not in my algorithm seeing a lot of the tea stuff. I just see a lot of like latte drinks, but not really much of like tea technology. I would love to see what it's like for myself and maybe try it out. I don't know. Some company might come up to me and say, "Hey, Joe, I see you started doing tea videos all of a sudden," and then they'll start sending me all this crazy equipment and start doing videos on those and trying them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of I won't say a lot, but there's some new innovative spots on the West Coast that are creating more like tap driven teas that you just kind of just pour off and pre-brewed things like that. Again, just not necessarily what we want the experience to be.
Yeah, just keep it just like one-on-one personal with you and the customer and have the tea experience that you guys expected to have for the flow that you guys got going on right now. Anything else you want to say? Where people can find you? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the biggest things that I want to talk about is, yeah, I alluded to the fact that I play it safe and my wife is more the entrepreneur and the can-do attitude. And starting a tea lounge or local coffee bar is in everybody's possibilities. I see so many businesses opening up with such a beautiful interior that probably paid $15,000 for an interior designer, and then the custom contractors to come in to create that space, the marble countertops and, the epoxied concrete floors. It's just very, very beautiful, beautiful thing. But then come to find out that the coffee isn't very good. And so it's all kind of flash and no substance. But I think there is definitely a place for mom and pop tea shops and coffee shops for where you start with the quality ingredients first and foremost, and cultivating the experience for the customer as opposed to just, spending a lot of money and spending a large fortune just to make a small one. We haven't found that success, personal satisfaction of creating an experience where people enjoy coming in and experiencing the tea lounge and the team that serves them and other customers around. As far as Short and Stout, you can find us at 1736 Western Avenue. We are a tea lounge with sit-down counter service cafe with croissant sandwiches, vegetarian spring rolls, 150 different kinds of teas, and a lot of different kinds of matchas. We are on social media, of course, just Facebook and Instagram, nothing too crazy. And that's really about it. I appreciate the opportunity, Joseph.
I'll have all that information on the description so you guys can follow them and see what they're doing. They consistently post, see what the upcoming drinks are and what's going on with Short and Stout Tea. Is there one last question before we go? Is there anything that you would like to give advice to somebody who wants to open up their own tea lounge?
Want to start something on their own? Absolutely. 100% for it. I do feel that it doesn't need to be the best of the best out of the gate. I think that there's a space for mom and pop authentic tea spots and coffee spots where people can share. It doesn't have to be a spot that is created that is, $100,000 to open up the doors. It can be something a lot smaller and then geared up from there.
Yeah, it's just something like starting off with like packaging tea in your own home and start selling that, and working your way into a brick and mortar store. You have to start off small and then work your way to something big. And that's what most people normally start off is something so simple as just doing a drop ship at their house and then expanding to an actual storefront.
Absolutely.
Well, it was good having you here, Matt. And I appreciate everything and going over everything about Short and Stout Tea. So everybody knows to stop by and get some lessons and learn a lot of the history of tea and how to perfect your own tea skills at home. Short and Stout Tea has all those great classes that you can join, and it's a really fun class, and you get a lot of knowledge, and they have great stuff in there. Just shop and sit around and enjoy the tea experience and relaxing, calm environment in Short and Stout Tea. Thank you for tuning in into this episode of Behind the Rose. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Matt from Short and Stout Tea and gained valuable insights into the world of tea and entrepreneurship. If you're in the Albany area, be sure to visit Short and Stout Tea for a unique and relaxing tea experience. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes and more exciting content. Until next time, keep sipping and exploring the wonderful world of tea.